He walked home late at night. The road was empty. The streetlights flickered. The sound of his own footsteps echoed around him. The air was cool. The world felt calm. But inside his mind there was a strange heaviness. He did not know why. Maybe it was just one of those nights when the silence feels too deep, when the shadows feel too long, and when the heart beats a little faster without reason. As he crossed a narrow path that led past the forest, he noticed something unusual in the sky. At first it looked like a falling star, bright and quick, but then it grew larger, brighter, and the sound of rushing wind followed. The light was no longer just beautiful, it was terrifying. It burned through the night like fire, breaking the sky apart. He stopped in his tracks, his heart raced, his eyes wide. He saw the object fall into the trees with a crash that shook the ground beneath his feet. The forest glowed for a moment, and then went dark again. Smoke rose into the air. The silence was broken by a low humming sound, something alive, something strange. He told himself to keep walking, to go home, to forget what he saw. But curiosity pulled at him, stronger than fear. His steps turned toward the forest, one after another, slow at first, then quicker. He pushed through the branches. The leaves whispered against his clothes, and soon he smelled burned earth, metal, and something else he could not name. Something sharp, alien. There in a small clearing he saw it. Not a machine, not just wreckage, but a figure lying on the ground, glowing faintly in the shadows. Armor cracked and broken, breathing heavy, struggling to move. The figure was not human. Its skin shone, pale under the weak moonlight, its eyes too large, too bright, like liquid silver. Its chest rose and fell with difficulty, each breath like thunder. For a moment he froze. Fear told him to run. Every story he had ever heard about creatures from the stars filled his head. But another voice whispered inside him, a quiet voice that said, "This is not a monster. This is someone dying." The alien raised a trembling hand, its voice broken. Strange words spilled out, harsh sounds he could not understand, then softer, slower, until finally one word came clear: help. The man's heart thudded louder. He could hardly believe it. This creature, this stranger from the stars, was asking him for help. He took a step closer. His mind still shouted no, but his feet ignored. He saw blood, or something like blood, dark and thick, spilling from the alien's side, the glow of the armor fading with each breath. He knelt beside the creature, his hands shaking. He whispered softly, though he knew it could not understand, "It's okay, I'll try." He pulled off his jacket, pressed it against the wound. The alien flinched but did not push him away. Its breathing slowed a little. Its silver eyes stared at him with confusion, and then with something else, something close to trust. Time stretched. The night felt endless. He looked over his shoulder again and again, expecting someone or something to come crashing out of the dark. But the forest stayed still, only the faint hum of broken metal around them. He thought of leaving, of saving himself. But when he looked at the alien's face, weak and pained, he knew he could not. He was the only one here, the only one who could do anything. The alien whispered again, voice weak. "Why? Help. Human. Weak." The man almost laughed, not from humor, but from disbelief that even in this state, the creature saw him as fragile, small, useless. He pressed harder on the wound, shook his head, and answered simply, "Because life is life and you're alive." The alien's silver eyes blinked slowly as if trying to understand, and then it closed them. Not dead, not gone, but resting, breathing steady for the first time since he found it. He sat there beside the stranger from the stars. The smoke still rising around them, the night heavy with silence again. But this silence was different. It was the kind that waits before something bigger, the kind that feels like the air itself is holding its breath. He did not know that by helping, by making this choice, his life would never be the same, that this moment would open a door to a world he never dreamed of, a world of warriors, of war, of secrets hidden in the stars. All he knew was that he had saved someone tonight, someone not human, someone whose people might come looking, someone whose enemies might already be on their way. And the thought made his skin crawl. In the shadows behind the trees, he thought he heard something move, heavy, slow, not like an animal, not like anything from Earth. The sound faded, then came again. Closer, heavier. He looked around, his heart pounding, but he saw nothing, only the dark. Still he felt eyes on him, unseen watchers waiting. He pressed his hand firmer against the alien's wound, trying to stay calm, telling himself the night was only playing tricks. But deep down he knew, something else was out there. Something coming. He sat awake long after midnight, the alien breathing weakly beside him, the forest outside filled with whispers of the wind and shadows moving like silent ghosts. Every sound made him tense. Every snap of a branch felt like a warning. He had saved the alien's life, at least for the moment, but now the weight of that choice pressed heavily on his chest. He kept asking himself why he had done it. The simple answer was because no one else would. But the deeper answer, the one he tried not to think about, was that something inside him had told him this moment mattered more than fear, more than safety. When dawn finally came, the pale light touched the clearing, and he saw the alien's eyes open again, brighter than before, though still weak. The alien tried to sit up, armor clattering softly, but fell back with a groan. He quickly helped, sliding an arm behind the creature's back, whispering gently though he knew the words might not be understood. "Careful, you're not strong yet." The alien turned its head, studied him with those silver eyes that looked far older than his entire life. Then, with a voice still rough and broken, it asked one question. Why? He froze, confused, then realized what it meant. Why save me? Why risk yourself? He swallowed, thought about all the answers that might make sense, but only one came out. Because you needed help, that's all. The alien seemed puzzled by that. Like the thought itself was strange, like in its world such kindness was rare. It coughed, winced, then said slowly, "Human. Weak, but heart strong." He almost smiled at the strange compliment, though the words carried no humor. He gave the alien water, tried to keep it comfortable, but the more he looked at its broken armor, the strange markings carved into the metal, the more he realized this was not some ordinary traveler. The armor carried scars of battle, deep burns, cracks from weapons he could not name. Whoever this was, it had fought in wars far beyond the stars, and now it was lying weak in his hands. Hours passed, the morning stretched on, and though the forest looked quiet, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Twice he thought he heard something heavy moving far away, like boots striking the ground, but when he peered through the trees he saw nothing. The alien noticed his unease, eyes narrowing, voice low. "Hunters, follow. They come." The words chilled him. Hunters. The thought that more beings like this might be out there, searching, maybe hostile, made his stomach twist. He asked quickly, "Hunters? Why?" The alien only shook its head, closing its eyes, as if too tired to answer, or unwilling to share. By midday the alien grew restless, tried again to stand, this time leaning on him, armor scraping against his arm. He struggled to support the weight, though the alien was not as heavy as he expected, more like carrying dense metal than flesh. "No," he whispered. "You need to rest." But the alien shook its head stubbornly, pointing toward the forest edge, muttering something in its language, then finally forcing out the word, "Danger." His heart raced faster now. He realized they could not stay here, not if enemies were coming. He didn't know where to take the alien. His home was too close to neighbors, too exposed. Still, he had no choice. He helped the creature walk, each step slow, painful, dragging through leaves and dirt. The forest seemed endless, every sound, sharper now, every bird cry turning into a warning in his ears. At last they reached the small road leading back to the edge of town. He almost stopped in shock when he saw the alien hesitate, silver eyes scanning the horizon as though it had never seen such a place before. The houses, the fences, the cracked pavement, ordinary to him, but to this being perhaps it looked like another planet. For a moment, they simply stood there, man and alien, both out of place in each other's world. He helped the alien inside his small house, sat it down on the couch, and hurried to bring water, food, anything he could think of. The alien touched the glass carefully as though the clear liquid was a strange treasure, then drank slowly. For a second its face softened, almost human-like, almost grateful, but just as he began to feel relief he heard it again. Outside. A sound low and distant, but steady. Thud. Thud. Like drums. Like footsteps too heavy for any human. His blood ran cold. He pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. The street was empty. Too empty. The alien sat straighter, silver eyes glowing faintly now, its voice a whisper. They come. He turned, heart hammering. Who? Who's coming? But the alien gave no answer, only looked at him with a mix of warning and regret. He felt the air shift, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The silence outside was worse than any sound. Thick, pressing, unnatural. He realized this was no ordinary night's adventure, no lucky or unlucky chance. By saving this one stranger, he had stepped into the path of something much larger, something his mind could barely imagine. He stood by the window, staring into the empty street, his hand shaking, his breath uneven, and then, faint but growing, he saw it. A line of shadows moving far down the road. Too many, too uniform, too heavy to be human. He whispered to himself, not knowing if he was afraid, amazed, or both. What have I done? And as the shadows marched closer, the ground trembling under their steps, he understood the truth. Last night he saved a life, and now that choice was about to change his world forever. The morning sun spilled weak light across the small town, yet the air outside felt wrong, too heavy, too quiet, as if the world itself was waiting for something. He had barely slept, his mind chasing questions without answers, his body tense with unease. The alien rested in his house, eyes closed but not in peace, more like a soldier sleeping with one ear open, ready to rise at the first sign of danger. He stepped outside for a moment just to breathe, but the air was thick with smoke still drifting faintly from the forest. The memory of last night refused to leave him. The crash, the wounded creature, the choice he had made. He thought helping would end there, a secret he could hide, but deep inside, he knew something larger was moving toward him, something that would not let his life remain ordinary. At first, the sound was faint like distant thunder, easy to mistake for the wind rolling over the hills, but then it grew louder, steady, rhythmic. Boom, boom, boom. His chest tightened. These were not natural sounds. They were footsteps. Many footsteps. He froze, his eyes darting down the street, and that was when he saw them. From the horizon, a line of armored figures appeared, marching in unison. Their armor caught the sunlight and turned it into fire. Their weapons gleamed like pieces of night pulled into metal. The ground shook with each step. Windows rattled. The air filled with the low growl of something alien. They moved not like soldiers of Earth, but like warriors from another world. Precise, unstoppable. Their shadows long and heavy across the cracked road. The neighbors noticed too. Curtains twitched. Doors locked with hurried clatters. Whispers filled the air like frightened birds. Mothers pulled children inside, old men stared wide-eyed before slamming shutters shut. The street emptied in moments, leaving him standing alone at the edge of his yard, frozen between running and facing what approached. The procession stopped directly in front of his house. At its center stood the tallest figure, his armor black with streaks of silver, a mask covering most of his face, eyes glowing faintly beneath it. Around him were dozens more, each one silent, their presence louder than any voice could be. The leader stepped forward, raised one massive hand, and the line behind him parted. Two warriors walked forward, carrying between them something long and wrapped in thick cloth, almost like a coffin but too light to be one. The sight made his stomach twist. He did not move, could not speak. The world seemed narrowed down to this moment. This strange army on his street, and him, the single human they had come for. The leader's voice broke the silence, deep, heavy like stone grinding against stone. Human. The word was clear, though touched with an accent not of this earth. You saved one of ours. You saved a warrior's blood. Our law demands honor. Our law demands gift. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His mind spun with disbelief. The alien inside his house, the one he had helped, must have been important. Important enough to summon this army. important enough to bring a law across the stars to his doorstep. He wanted to say it was a mistake, that he was no hero, just a man who couldn't walk away. But his voice stayed trapped in his throat. The leader motioned and the cloth was pulled away. What lay beneath made his heart stumble. It was not a coffin. It was a woman, or something close to one. Her form was tall, graceful, her skin pale with a faint shimmer, her eyes closed as if in deep sleep. She was dressed in strange fabrics, layers of silver and blue, adorned with marks and jewels that seemed to hum faintly with power. The leader's voice thundered again. "She is yours. Our law gives her. You are bound." He staggered back a step, shaking his head, words finally bursting out. "No, I don't understand. I don't want this." The warriors did not move. The leader tilted his head, his glowing eyes cold and sharp. "You do not choose. The law chooses. You saved life. You gain life." The woman's eyes opened slowly then, silver like the wounded aliens, but softer, glowing with something unspoken. She looked at him directly, not with anger, not with kindness, but with a curiosity that pierced deeper than he could bear. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. Behind him, he thought of the wounded alien still inside his house. Was this connected? Was this some ritual of their people? A debt, a chain? He didn't know. All he knew was that he was trapped in a story that refused to let him escape. The leader raised his hand again, and the entire army struck the ground with their weapons in unison. The sound thundered through the street, shaking the houses, rattling the bones of everyone hiding inside. It was not just a salute. It was a declaration. A human had saved one of their own. And now, whether he wished it or not, he was part of their law, part of their world. The woman stepped forward, her movement graceful yet heavy with destiny, her eyes never leaving his. She stopped only inches from him, her voice soft, almost like a whisper carried from another galaxy. "Now, I am yours." His mouth went dry, his pulse racing so hard it hurt. He wanted to shout, to deny it, to push this impossible fate away. But the words froze again, and in that silence he realized something deeper. His life, his town, his world, nothing would be ordinary again. The army turned slowly, the leader lowering his hand, the rhythm of their march beginning once more. But she stayed, standing beside him. No chains, no force, just presence. He stood there, unable to move, unable to think, staring at the alien bride who had been placed in his life as if she were both gift and burden, blessing and curse. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered the truth. This was only the beginning. She stood there in the doorway of his small house, tall, strange, glowing faintly in the morning light, her silver eyes never leaving his face. He felt as if time itself had slowed, as if the world outside, the street, the frightened neighbors hiding behind curtains, even the army that had marched away, no longer existed. There was only her, this alien bride who had been handed to him like some ancient gift, though he never asked for it, never wanted it. He tried to speak, but his mouth was dry, his voice caught between disbelief and fear. I don't understand. I can't. But the words dissolved, sounding weak even to himself. She tilted her head, studying him with an expression he couldn't name. Her features were both human and not, delicate, beautiful in a way that unsettled him, but edged with something otherworldly, something powerful, like standing too close to a storm. Inside, the wounded alien he had saved stirred, his breathing harsh, his armor still cracked. When he saw her, his silver eyes widened, then narrowed as though he recognized her instantly. He muttered something in their language, words sharp and urgent, but she replied calmly, a soft ripple of sound that seemed to hush even the air itself. Their exchange lasted only moments, yet the tension in the room deepened, and he realized this was no simple ceremony, no harmless tradition. She turned back to him, stepping closer, the floor creaking under her strange boots. "They honor you," she said in a low, careful voice, her accent heavy but her words clear enough. "But honor is also chain. You saved his life. Now law binds you to me." His heart thudded. He shook his head, backing a step away. "No, I didn't ask for this. I was only trying to help. That's it. That's all." Her gaze softened for a moment, though her eyes still glowed faintly like hidden fire. "Your world is simple, but ours is not. When you save a warrior's blood, you join that blood. You join his house. You join his fight." He almost laughed, a nervous, bitter laugh. "Fight? I'm not a fighter. I'm not even brave. He stopped, his voice trembling. I just didn't want someone to die. She studied him again, quiet, then said, that is why they chose. Not because you are strong with arms, but because you are strong with heart, and that is more rare than you know. Her words struck him in a way he couldn't explain, both comforting and terrifying. He looked at her more closely now. She wasn't simply a bride forced into his life. She was something larger, something tied to a world of war and honor, a world he had accidentally stepped into. Night fell slowly, and she remained in the house silent most of the time, moving carefully as though every step carried meaning. The neighbors stayed hidden, too afraid to come near. He sat in the corner, unable to rest, his thoughts racing in endless circles. She sat opposite him, her strange clothing shimmering faintly even in the dark. Finally, he asked, his voice small, do you even want this? Do you want to be here with me? She turned her head, and for the first time her expression cracked. Not anger, not fear, something more fragile. One is not given to me. Duty is I am gift. I am bond, but... She paused, her eyes lowering for a moment, her voice dropping to a whisper. I also choose to stay, because I must see what kind of human you are. The words unsettled him more than any threat could. She wasn't a prisoner. She wasn't unwilling. She had her own reasons, hidden, waiting to be revealed. Later that night, as the alien he had saved slept uneasily, she spoke again, her voice softer than before. You think this is blessing? It is not. You think this is curse. It is not, it is warning. He frowned, leaning forward. Warning of what? She looked directly at him then, her silver eyes brighter than ever. Her tone sharp now, edged with fear she tried to hide. You saved, he is not only warrior, he is blood of crown. His enemies will come. Not just for him, for you, for all who stand near. The room seemed to grow colder. His hands shook, his breath uneven. He thought back to the distant sounds in the forest, the heavy footsteps, the way the army had appeared so suddenly, as if chasing time itself. Now it made sense. Saving that alien had not only changed one life, it had painted a target on his back. The alien bride leaned closer, her voice low, urgent. I will protect you. That is my vow. But know this, your world is no longer safe. Your people are no longer safe, and soon, the war will find you. He sat frozen, the weight of her words pressing down like stone. Outside, the night was too quiet, too still, the kind of stillness that waits before a storm. And as he stared at her glowing eyes, at the strange woman who had been given to him as honor yet revealed herself as warning, he understood a terrible truth. His choice to save one life had not only bound him to her, it had bound him to a destiny written far beyond the stars. The night dragged on like a slow river, heavy with silence, yet beneath that silence something darker pulsed, like a drumbeat too deep to hear but strong enough to feel in the bones. He sat near the window, eyes fixed on the street outside, waiting for shapes to appear again, waiting for that thunder of footsteps to return. But the road lay empty, the lamps buzzing faintly, the world pretending to be normal while his heart knew it was not. Behind him, the alien bride moved quietly through his small house, every step graceful, every gesture deliberate, as though she had lived here for years. Though she had only just arrived, she did not touch anything, did not disturb his world, but her presence itself changed it. Even the air felt different when she stood near, heavier, alive. At last she spoke, her voice soft, low enough that it almost blended into the hum of the night. Do you know who you saved? He turned, frowning, his throat dry. I know he wasn't human. I know he would have died without me. That's all. Her silver eyes glowed faintly, catching the dim light. She shook her head slowly. You saved more than a warrior. You saved bloodline, royal blood. He is son of crown, soldier of high house, heir to war. The word struck him like ice water. He gripped the window frame, shaking his head. Royal? No, that's impossible. He crashed here. He was broken, dying. He didn't look like some prince. She stepped closer, her gaze unblinking, her voice sharper now. Royal blood does not mean safe blood. It means hunted blood. His enemies follow him across stars. Now they know of you. They know a human interfered. That makes you part of his story. His chest tightened, fear rushing like cold fire through him. He wanted to argue, to say this wasn't his problem, that he was just a man who acted on instinct, not a hero, not chosen. But her words carved too deep, and the truth could not be denied. He had stepped into a river, and the current was too strong to escape. She sat across from him, her eyes softer now, almost sorrowful. That is why they gave me to you. Not just honor, protection. They bind us so their law protects you. But law does not stop war. Enemies will not care for rules. They will come. He lowered his head into his hands, his breath trembling. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. Her voice fell into a whisper, steady but heavy. Want does not matter. Choice was made when you pulled him from death. You became more than human in that moment. You became part of a war you cannot yet see. He stared at her then, anger and fear mixing inside him. Why stay here then? Why give me to you? Why not take him back, protect him somewhere far away from Earth? She held his gaze, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. Because Earth is already seen, already marked. His blood touched your ground, and now his enemies will look here. You are not hidden anymore. None of your people are hidden anymore. The words hollowed him out. He thought of his neighbors, the families sleeping unaware in their homes, the children who had peeked at the armored warriors from behind curtains. They had no idea what storm circled above them waiting. He whispered, his voice cracking. So what happens to me now? She leaned forward, her silver eyes glowing brighter, her tone carrying both promise and burden. Now you prepare. You learn. You survive. Because when they come, they will not only come for him, they will come for you. And when they fail to take you, they will come for all you love. A cold weight settled in his chest. His life, his home, his world. It was all fragile glass, and now cracks spread faster than he could count. He looked at her, at the strange woman bound to him by a law he didn't understand. And for the first time he saw her not just as a gift or a warning, but as a shield. And perhaps one day a sword. Later, as the night deepened, she moved closer to him, her presence calm but firm. Do not think you stand alone. My vow is to you now, to guard you, to fight beside you. That is my law. That is my choice. He wanted to believe her, wanted to let her words fill the hollow inside him, but fear still gnawed. He pressed his palms together, staring at the floor. What if I can't do it? What if I can't survive what's coming? She reached out, her hand hovering just above his, not quite touching, but close enough that warmth spread between them. Then I will carry you, until you find your strength. He raised his eyes slowly, meeting hers, and for a moment the fear eased. There was no romance in her gaze, no softness of lovers, but something else, something ancient, unshakable. Duty, loyalty, a bond forged not by desire but by survival. And as the night whispered outside, as shadows stretched across his small world, he understood a terrible truth. The storm she spoke of was already moving. It was only a matter of time before the first strike fell, and when it did, he would no longer be just a man. He would be the human who stood in the path of war, bound to an alien bride, hunted by enemies he could not yet name. The days that followed were strange, filled with a silence that felt heavy, a silence that belonged not to peace but to waiting. He tried to live as if nothing had changed, waking, walking through his house, pretending the world outside still belonged to him. But it didn't. Every glance out the window reminded him. The neighbors looked at him differently now, with eyes that carried both fear and suspicion. To them, he was no longer just the man who lived quietly at the edge of town. He was the man the aliens had marched to, the man who had been given a bride not of this world. Inside his house, the alien woman remained close, moving with quiet certainty, always alert, her silver eyes scanning every sound, every shadow. She spoke little, but when she did, her words always circled back to the same truth. Danger was coming. He tried to dismiss it, tried to tell himself that maybe the worst had already passed. But deep down, he knew she was right. It came first as a sound, one that did not belong to Earth. A low hum, deep and unending, rolling through the sky like thunder stretched into eternity. He ran outside, heart hammering, and saw it. Above the horizon, dark ships sliding into view. Not sleek like silver arrows, but jagged, heavy, carrying the look of predators. Their lights burned red against the morning sky, and the ground itself seemed to tremble as they descended. Panic swept the town like fire. People screamed, rushing into their homes, slamming doors, locking windows. Children cried, parents shouted. He stood in the middle of the street, frozen, unable to move, unable to believe that his quiet town was now the center of something far larger than itself. The alien bride came to his side, her face calm but fierce, her hand gripping a weapon he had never seen her carry before. It looked grown from metal rather than built, pulsing faintly with light. They are here, she said simply, her voice steady. Not friends. Not honor. They come to claim blood. They come to claim you. His stomach sank. Me? Why me? Because you saved him, she replied, silver eyes fixed on the ships. Because now you are part of his blood. And his enemies do not forgive. The ships roared lower and the air cracked with the sound of something opening. Then they came. Dark figures dropping from the sky, armor black, eyes glowing like embers, weapons crackling with fire not made of gunpowder but of energy itself. They marched with brutal precision, and their voices filled the air with a language sharp as knives. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward, his voice booming across the street. Human, you interfere where you do not belong. Hand over the blood you saved. Hand over yourself. Or burn. The words rang clear, too clear, and though his body shook, he understood. This was not a negotiation. This was a death sentence. The alien woman stepped in front of him, her voice sharp and unyielding. You will not touch him. By my vow, by my blade, by my house, he is protected. The warriors laughed, a cruel sound like metal grinding against stone. Then, without warning, they raised their weapons and the world erupted. Bolts of energy tore through the street, scorching walls, ripping the ground open. Windows shattered, fire sparked, screams filled the air. He ducked instinctively, heart pounding so hard it drowned out every other sound. The alien woman moved with impossible speed, her weapon flashing arcs of light that cut through the attackers. Every strike was precise, every movement graceful and deadly. But there were too many. They poured from the ships like a tide of shadows, their eyes burning, their voices roaring. The town became a battlefield, and he, caught in the center, could only struggle to survive. A blast struck near him, throwing him against the ground, pain shooting through his body. He looked up, dazed, and saw one of the warriors raising a weapon aiming at him. For a heartbeat he saw death, but before the strike fell, the alien bride leapt between them, her blade carving through the attacker with a burst of light. She turned, eyes fierce, shouting, "Stand, human! Do not fall now." He forced himself to his feet, shaking, terrified, yet something inside him shifted. His eyes fell on a fallen weapon lying in the dirt, humming faintly with alien energy. Without thinking, he grabbed it. The handle burned in his hands, alive, resisting him, but then it steadied, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Another warrior charged. He raised the weapon clumsily, squeezed the trigger, and light exploded forward, striking the enemy down. His arms trembled, his ears rang, but the warrior lay still. For the first time, he had fought back. The bride's silver eyes met his, and she gave a small, sharp nod. Not approval, recognition. The battle raged on, fire and smoke filling the air, the ground shaking beneath the weight of alien boots. His neighbors, once hidden, now screamed from burning houses. The sky was red with the glow of flames and ships. His world was collapsing, and yet in the middle of it, something else was being built. A bond between him and the woman who had sworn to protect him, and perhaps a new strength inside him he had never known. As the enemy lines pressed closer, their leader raised his weapon high, his voice cutting through the chaos. This world will burn for him, for the human who dared to interfere. The bride stood firm, her weapon glowing like a star in the smoke. She whispered to him without turning her head, "This is only the beginning. If you survive tonight, you will never be the same." He tightened his grip on the alien weapon, fear still raging in his chest, but something else sparking beneath it. A fire not of terror, but of defiance. For the first time, he wasn't just the man who had stumbled into a story. He was part of it, and as the enemy charged again, he raised the weapon, ready to face the war that had finally arrived on his doorstep. The world was burning around him. Smoke curled into the night sky, flames painted the street in wild orange light, and the ground shook with every blast of alien fire. He could hardly hear his own breathing over the chaos, but his hands gripped the weapon tighter, its hum pulsing with his heartbeat, its alien light cutting through the dark. He was no soldier, no warrior, just a man who had once walked home from work at night. But that man was gone. What stood here now was someone else, someone forged by fire, by choice, by survival. The alien bride fought beside him, her movements fluid, fierce, her blade a streak of silver light slicing through enemy after enemy. Her face was calm, but her eyes blazed like stars at war. Every time he faltered, she was there, blocking a strike, guiding him, her vow as real as the fire that burned their town. But the tide was endless. Dark warriors kept pouring from the ships, their armor glowing with red veins of energy, their voices roaring in a language that felt like thunder. The leader stood at the center of it all, taller, stronger, his weapon burning brighter, his eyes fixed on the human. He was not here to conquer a town. He was here to erase a man. The leader pointed his weapon, voice booming across the battlefield. Human, you carry what does not belong to you. You stand where no one of your kind should stand. Kneel now and your death will be quick. The man's chest heaved, his arms ached, every nerve screamed at him to run, to hide, to give up. But when he looked at the burning houses, when he heard the cries of his neighbors, when he saw the bride standing tall despite the endless storm of enemies, something inside him hardened. He raised the weapon, his voice hoarse but strong. I won't kneel. Not to you. Not ever. The alien leader roared, charging forward, his strikes shaking the ground, his power far beyond anything the man could hope to match. Blow after blow rained down, and though he tried to fight back, every block rattled his bones, every hit pushed him closer to breaking. The weapon in his hands felt too heavy now, each swing slower than the last. Then came the final strike. The leader's blade of energy arced down, and in that instant he knew it would end. But before it landed, she was there. The bride stepped between them, her own weapon flashing in a desperate block. The collision lit the street in blinding light, the shockwave throwing dust and fire into the air. She stumbled, blood or whatever silver liquid ran in her veins, streaked her side, but she did not fall. She looked back at him, her voice sharp and urgent. Stand! This is your fight too! Her words cut deeper than any wound. His fear turned to fire. He screamed, not in terror but in defiance, raising the weapon high, pressing every ounce of strength, every piece of will into one final strike. The weapon pulsed, brighter, hotter, until it burned his arms. Then it released. A surge of light exploded outward, crashing into the alien leader with the force of a storm. The ground split, the air shook, and the enemy was hurled backward, his armor cracked, his weapon shattered. The dark warriors froze, their formation broken, their voices faltering. The man fell to his knees, gasping, smoke filling his lungs, but he did not let go of the weapon. The bride knelt beside him, her hand gripping his shoulder, steadying him. Together they watched as the enemy leader struggled to rise, his eyes blazing with fury, but his body weakened. With a final ragged cry, he retreated, his warriors dragging him back toward the ships. The red glow of their vessels flared, and one by one they lifted into the sky, vanishing into the stars. The street lay in ruins. Houses burned, walls crumbled. The air reeked of smoke and ash. Yet the silence that followed was not defeat. It was survival. Slowly, doors creaked open. Neighbors stepped out, their faces pale with fear but wide with disbelief. They stared at him. Not the bride, not the alien warriors who had once stood here, but at him. The human who had stood against a storm and lived. One of the children whispered, voice trembling but clear, "He saved us." The words spread like fire through the crowd. He wanted to deny it, to tell them it wasn't him, that he was nothing without her, without the vow that kept him alive. But the truth was harder. He had fought. He had stood. And now, whether he liked it or not, he was marked forever. The bride rose beside him, her eyes softer now, though still shining with that alien fire. She looked at him with something different than before, not just duty, not just bond, but respect. Now, she said quietly, you are truly one of us. He lifted his head, meeting her gaze. His body ached, his mind reeled, but he felt it too. Something inside him had changed. He was no longer the man who walked home late at night, no longer just the human who had stumbled into a war. He was part of something greater, bound to her, bound to the stars, bound to a fight that was only beginning. He looked at the sky, the stars burning cold and distant, and a thought rose in him like a whisper. This was not the end. The enemy would return, stronger, angrier, unwilling to forget the human who had dared to stand against them. But for now, as the night grew still again, as the fires dimmed and the survivors gathered, he allowed himself one fragile moment of peace. He had survived. They had survived. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, a new strength burned, a fire that would never go out. Because now he was no longer just human. He was the human who stood when no one else would. The human who fought beside an alien bride. The human who would never kneel. And the universe had already taken notice.